Hello! Welcome back to the channel, guys. The last video was such a long time ago, but that's kind of because I didn't really have anything to talk about. But now, 5 months later, here we are, and there's finally something that I have an opinion on. That's crazy. I'm so glad I have a YouTube channel in order to, as a platform for me to express my opinions. So we're going to talk about the Game of the Year awards are tomorrow, I think. So I'm gonna just make some predictions. This is gonna be less of a personal opinion and more of what I think is gonna win, but also what I think should win. I think that the prediction and what I ultimately think should win line up. So in that sense, I guess I'm just a normie. I'm a real NPC because my opinion is lining up. Anyway, there's really only two games badlinted out for Game of the Year, and it's Elden Ring versus God of War Ragnarok. The other ones are some bullshit like Horizon Forbidden West and Stray. I played Stray and I got a solid 100% of the game in a solid 8.5 hours. Um, I know that like time played doesn't correlate really, or it shouldn't correlate to like the project as a whole in relation to the Game of the Year award, but like come the fuck on, man. Like 8 hours of gameplay, like I mean, if that's gonna stick with you for a whole year, if 8 hours is gonna define your entire fucking year in terms of gaming, then I better be having a fucking straight up orgasm for 8 hours straight, man. I better have fucking I better be getting, I don't know, brain stimuli directly into my fucking neural cortex, like straight stimulation that's causing me to come every 2 seconds. Yeah, that's but anyway, so Elden Ring, speaking of time played, since I just did consider that as a factor, I have 130 hours in Elden Ring, I have 100% completion. God of War, I have 50 hours and I have 100% completion. Um, to be straight up, I think that Elden Ring is going to win Game of the Year, and I think it should win Game of the Year. That is not to say that God of War Ragnarok wasn't almost an equal high point of my gaming experience this year. I just think that when you step into Elden Ring for the first time, holy fucking shit, it's so cool. Like the visuals of God of War Ragnarok will blow you away. You're gonna be like, wow, this is very fun. The haptic feedback of the PS5 controller when you're walking through the snow, when you're fighting, you're just immersed the whole time. You think it's amazing, but holy shit, when you step foot in the Elden Ring world for the first time, you're blown away. You just are. You're loving it. You're walking around, you're fighting the tree sentinel for 3.5 fucking hours before realizing that you should just give up and go maybe try to get some actual weaponry to come back and beat it. You're going to that broken down church. You're talking to Ronnie the Witch. She's a baddie. They got bad bitches in like the first 10 minutes of gameplay. You're walking around to the camp. It's good. It's great, right? God of War, on the other hand, you're just kind of you're off to a strong start, right? But the narrative is controlled the whole time, right? Much like Hollywood and the big corporations, right? The narrative is controlled. Um, as you can see, I have pros and cons for both Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. God of War's identity as an open world game is somewhat confused. It is technically open world because you can go back to the places that you've already been, um, and kind of loot and get 100% completion for each area, as well as collectibles and all sorts of fun stuff like that, which does give you a good amount of content to do. And it's not like that stuff is completely devoid of anything that adds to the world as a whole. Like when you go back and collect stuff, like there's some areas where there's side quests that feel like they're better than entire game's main quest line. And I know that's a take that others have had too. Um, but it is very much still like an on the rails experience where when you return to that area, the exploration that you're gonna be able um, to undertake is very much controlled. Whereas with Elden Ring, it's like holy shit, every other turn, every other fucking cave, every other fucking whatever is like gonna have some bullshit that you've never seen before. I mean, they do recycle bosses. That's all in the pros and cons list and stuff here too that you guys can look at. Um, the boss fights in Ragnarok, cinematically speaking, are way fucking sicker than in Elden Ring, but the bosses in Elden Ring are just way more satisfying to beat because you feel like you've actually overcome a challenge. You feel like you're in no way really prepared for the challenge when you first encounter the bosses in Elden Ring, and it's your job to get prepared and you beat them kind of at your own behest. Um, with God of War Ragnarok, it feels like you're always prepared for the challenge. Like you're not going to be, even on the hardest difficulty, it's not going to be like, holy fuck, I really accomplished anything. It's like, holy fuck, I kind of did something that the game was setting me up for. I mean, there are some optional bosses like the Berserker Kings and the fucking Valkyrie that's in Muspelheim, without spoiling too much. Uh, and those fights are fun and they're actually kind of difficult depending on the difficulty. That's another thing. I think Elden Ring's difficulty is defined by the kind of build you have and the gameplay style you choose to undertake, whereas God of War's difficulty is literally just a difficulty slider. Like you have less health, they hit harder, um, stuff like that. Which I think Elden Ring kind of the difficulty is a lot more interesting. The world building, I think each world to each to their own. You know, God of War Ragnarok is just fucking gorgeous. Um, I mean, Alfheim is just another level. I literally sat there for like just an hour, just jerking my shit to how beautiful the visuals were. Elden Ring, same thing. Um, that underground area that you take the well to with like the stars, you can just sit there forever and just you can have a view and a half. Both are equally breathtaking in my opinion. So I don't think people are saying that Elden Ring. I don't think people are saying that Elden Ring's world and visual design is crazy compared to Ragnarok's, because they're both like they both feel epic in scale. It's just one, Elden Ring actually is a much bigger game with much more to explore than God of War, but they're both visually very profound and gigantic feeling, I guess. Uh, both soundtracks are amazing, but I think Elden Ring edges out God of War Ragnarok on the music side. Like there's some boss fights, like the Godskin Apostle that you find in Caelid. That boss music, I still have that on a playlist to this day. And if I ever need to undertake like a gargantuous task, like if I have a final due or a midterm that I haven't studied for, and it's like the night before, then I'll play that music and I'll just bust it out and you know do 3 lines of Adderall and it'll be GG's. But yeah, but the only thing is that God of War Ragnarok is very hard to find downsides. I think it's a near perfect game. The thing is, Elden Ring has an obvious downside. The final boss sucks. The Elden Beast is not fun to fight. He doesn't feel like the culmination of all the efforts. It's kind of like, what the fuck am I doing fighting this? He looks like a fucking dinosaur, man. He looks like a stupid dinosaur drawn by a toddler because he's like round edges and shit. Um, But other than that, I mean, I think Elden Ring is just crazy. That game was, I mean, it kept me occupied easily for 130 hours. My 130 hours in Elden Ring felt like my 50 hours in God of War, which, I mean, that has to say something. Anyway, guys, let me know your opinions in the comments below. But that's my take, and we'll see if I'm correct at the Game Awards tomorrow. Bye bye.